Hi guys, today we are going to learn all about exponents. All right, so the first thing you need to know is what we call the different parts of exponents. Anything right here is called the base, and that's the number we're multiplying times itself. And this exponent up here tells us how many times we're going to multiply it times itself. So if we were to evaluate negative 3 to the first power, it would just be negative 3. Negative 3 to the second power, or squared, would be 9 because it's negative 3 times negative 3, right? So a negative times a negative gives you a positive. Now, negative 3 to the third power is just going to be this answer here times negative 3 again. So it will be negative 27. For this one, it will actually be a positive 81, and negative 3 to the fifth power is going to be negative 243, and negative 3 to the sixth power will be 729. So let's just look at these for 1 second. I'm going to circle the ones that are negative. So to the first power is negative, to the third power is negative, to the fifth power is negative. So you might notice that if we have a negative number to an odd power, our answer is going to end up being negative. And what happens is that we have a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative times a negative. So we have 5 negatives. Remember, a negative times a negative cancels out and makes positive. So that's a positive, and we're left with a negative there. So our final answer is negative. So just something quick to check out there. One other quick piece of notation I want you to know is that when you have a negative number inside parentheses, that tells you that the negative number is multiplied times itself. But if I just had negative 3 squared, that negative does not necessarily attach to the 3. We're going to do 3 squared, and our answer is going to be negative no matter what. Okay, so this would just be a negative 9. That would be our answer. If we wanted to make sure that you're taking negative 3 times itself, you would have to put the parentheses there. So that's important notation for this week's work. So that would end up being a positive 9. So the presence of those parentheses really tells you how to handle the negative. So once again, if the negative is inside parentheses, you're going to take the entire negative number and multiply it times itself. If it is not in parentheses, then you are going to just make sure that that negative remains, and you're going to just take this whole number here and multiply it times itself. So I think you guys will do great on that. All right, so one important thing to notice is that when you have a fraction times itself, like here we have 1/4 times itself 5 times, you're going to write it as 1/4 to the fifth power. And those parentheses just help us be very clear that we're taking the entire fraction times itself 5 times. Okay. One thing to notice, if you have a fraction or a decimal less than 1, your final answer should be much smaller than this. Okay. So our final answer would look like this. They're just asking you to write it in exponent form. As you're doing today's work, I want you to also remember the order of operations. First, you're going to evaluate parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication and division get evaluated together, and addition and subtraction get evaluated together. So if you were evaluating this expression, you have addition, you have multiplication, and you have exponents. So the first thing you have to do is do your exponents. So 3 to the fourth is going to be 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which will give us 81. So 3 plus 2 times 81. Now the important thing to notice is that you have to do the multiplication before you do the addition. So 2 times 81 is going to give us 162, and then we add 3 to that, and our final answer will be 165. So if you're evaluating this one, you have to keep thinking about PEMDAS. I see some exponents, so we're going to go ahead and evaluate those first. So 4 to the third is going to be 4 times 4, which is 16, times 4 gives us 64. So we bring down the 1/2, minus 6 times 3 to the 6 times 9. So this is going to give us 64 minus 54, and 1/2 of what's in parentheses is going to be 10, and that's going to give us a final answer of 5. So first we dealt with the exponents, then we dealt with multiplication, then we dealt with what's inside parentheses, and finally we dealt with the multiplication out here. So we did parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division, and we were good. The final thing I want to show you guys is how to write exponents when you have different bases. So here our base is -4. Here our base is y, okay? So this would be -4 to the third power times y squared. So your exponent tells you how many times you're multiplying that base. So here it's 2, here it's 3, and your base remains unchanged. So have fun with this. It really does save you a ton of time in the long run, because if we are talking about, $3 trillion, you need to know how much money that actually is. So if we were to talk about a trillion, that's actually 10 to the 12th, which is the same as 10 to the 6th times 10 to the 6th. So it would be a million. Whoops, I wrote that wrong. So it would be 10 to the 6th. So it would be a million. All right, have fun with this, guys, and good luck.